This is ogforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Paya. Paya offers Acumatica users a suite of industry-leading payment orchestration tools. Far beyond native Acumatica payments, Paya enables EMV NFC terminals for countersale. They offer a frictionless customer portal through their click-to-pay solution, and they support most e-commerce platforms and point-of-sale solutions used with Acumatica, such as One Retail and AcuPOS. And best of all, omni-channel reconciliation is available for all their solutions. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is Aldrich Web Solutions. Are you a distributor using Acumatica, yet struggling with an e-commerce fit? US-based Aldrich Web Solutions out of Marion, Illinois, has 2 decades of experience helping distributors find success online. Our team of experts built the integration, creating websites that work effortlessly with Acumatica. With our reputation for swift customer service and meticulous attention to detail, we are the perfect fit for distributors needing online solutions. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. I mean guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Friday, March 1st, 2024, and this is episode number 128. You can find related links on the episode page at augforums.com/episode 128. Today, I'm talking with Noah Moseley about financial reporting, budgeting, and forecasting in Acumatica. Hey, Noah, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, Tim. Good morning. Glad to be here.
And as we already talked about,
128, huh?
Oh, yes, 128. Pretty good, huh?
That's adding up pretty fast.
Yeah, it's been, I don't even know when the first one was. I would guess 4 years, but I don't remember. Over 4 years. Yeah. And as we already talked, you've got some construction going on where you're at right now, so we might hear some noise in the background. Totally acceptable and par for the course here on the Real Talk podcast. No problem. But I always like to start off by getting the brief origin story of all of our guests. So maybe you could tell us where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you landed in the world of mid-market ERP.
Yep, glad to go into that. So right now I live in Pensacola, Florida. I was born and raised in a small town in South Alabama on a farm, and I guess I was in computers since they rolled them out back in the 80s. I went to college at Troy University so many years ago. It's flown by. I'm 52 now. And I actually got into the ERP business through Microsoft Dynamics. That was back in 2000 or so when I started into that ERP solution. And really, from the day one with them, it was financial reporting and budgeting software for the Dynamics arena. I did that until we started this company back in 2009. Um, Microsoft gave us this great opportunity to start our own business. Some people call it a layoff. We call it opportunity. So that was an exciting recession time for everybody, 2008 and 9. So a bunch of us that were all laid off at the same time from Dynamics, from Microsoft, we started this company. We started it pretty much right away for financial reporting, continue what we've been working with, and we started development on our product, Prospero, which we still hook up Prospero to the dynamic solutions, and we started with Acumatica a few years back, and then uh, pretty soon after we rolled it out with financial reporting, we added budgeting to it almost right away. So it's been a little bit of an adventure for us. I can still remember when Acumatica, the first time I saw them was in New Orleans when Microsoft Dynamics had their big summit, and they wouldn't let Acumatica into the conference because they were a competitor. And Acumatica rented out this huge restaurant right across from the entrance to the convention center, and really did a lot of marketing in New Orleans for that whole week there. That was my first exposure to Acumatica. Um,
Interesting. You don't have any pictures from that, do you? I'd love to share one on the episode page if you do.
I'll look back. That was probably like 10 years ago, but I'll go back and see if I do have some of that kind of stuff. They
That'd
rented
be
a restaurant
interesting.
called, I think, Mufalada's, which is a huge restaurant right down there near the river. I love New Orleans, go there a lot. And they just blanketed New Orleans and the French Quarter with their logo and everything all over the little rickshaw bikes that would run around as taxis to everybody and pass out flyers for lunches and dinners for that restaurant at the entrance to the convention center for Dynamics. They did a really great job on that marketing program.
And so you didn't even know about Acumatica before that, is that right?
That was my first time even seeing the name.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Very
it was,
interesting.
and I mean they had to spend a ton of money just to rent that restaurant, all the marketing, but I think it's paid off for them.
Yeah, and that was not the only time they did something like that. They crashed a number of shows in
Really?
similar fashion. That's funny.
Okay, awesome. Good for them.
So you were actually at Microsoft, and were you working on the FRX and the FRX Forecaster product? Is that what you were doing
So
there?
I was. So when I was with Microsoft, it was the FRX solution, which was financial reporting. There was Forecaster, which was budgeting and forecasting, and then it was also Management Reporter, which was the replacement for FRX. So I worked on
Gotcha.
all those things in the training and consulting teams. And we all knew that Microsoft was just going to discontinue those products. They never rolled out a replacement, and we just felt like we had to come up with some kind of solution for not just the Dynamics people, but for all those other ERP solutions that were rolling out as well.
And Prospero is your product. So
It
is that
is
right? I mean, you developed it. So you guys do consulting on it, I would assume, but then you also have your product as well.
correct. So we started our business, MSX Group, as just a service um, company for the Microsoft solutions. And then maybe about 2015, maybe before that, we rolled out Prospero. We developed Prospero in house. Um, we rolled it out first with financial reporting, and then added budgeting to it the year after. And um, we offer it as a combined package, financial reporting, budgeting, and forecasting all together. But we do have some clients that go separately. Like they may just do the financial reporting piece, or they may just do the budgeting piece.
Gotcha. Yeah, I figured you'd be a good person to talk to about financial reporting, budgeting, and forecasting because you do have a product, but then you also know the other products in the space. And a lot of times you get talking to an ISV and all they know is their product. They don't really know the landscape very well. And you strike me as someone who knows the landscape well. And so
Well,
I think you're a good person to talk to about this.
I've been in the community for quite a while, and it's a very tight knit community as far as the financial reporting people and the budgeting people, as far as the people that build their own solution and provide that software solution to the community, the ERP users. We see them every year at all these conferences, whether it's going to be like in San Antonio or Vegas for Acumatica stuff. It's good to see familiar faces at all the booths that you go to.
Yeah, agreed. Tight knit community, this mid market ERP space. Not a ton of players, but definitely more players than like the SAP world. But
Yep.
yeah, there's still a lot of familiar faces.
And did you make Vegas this year? I think you did.
I did make it. Yes, I think you were there as well, but we
No,
didn't
no. So I
cross
was
paths.
going, but I had to bail of this year. So I've been like the past 3 years, but this year I missed it.
Ah, okay, okay,
So I
gotcha.
missed seeing everybody. I missed winning a lot of money on roulette and stuff. So
Sure.
yeah, I do love Vegas. So I would have been there if I could have.
Maybe let's start off with financial reporting. So, and let's take it from the Acumatica angle. So we've
Yep.
got Acumatica, and they have their out of the box financial reporting product, which is very similar to FRX, in my opinion.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of times in implementations, it's the last thing that a consultant wants to do. At least the ones I deal with mainly, like it's just boring to create these financial statements and balance sheets and sometimes cash flow statements. Talk to me from your angle. Do you get excited about that stuff, or how do you make someone excited about that stuff?
So I still do after all these years. I mean, I love solving the solutions for the accountants, the finance team. IT loves us because they don't have to write the reports. They can call us and we can help them do everything. We really got into the Acumatica financial reporting side because there were a lot of dynamic users that were leaving Dynamics and going to some other solution, Acumatica being one of them. So, if they've been using FRX in the past or management and reporter in the past with Dynamics, we have tools that we convert all their reports over to Prospero, and then we hook it up to Acumatica and get them up and running much more quickly than them having to build stuff from scratch. And my background from college and everything is accounting. And I think the majority of us in my company are accounting backgrounds. We've got developers and we've got um, um, people who are on the support team, but the majority of us have accounting backgrounds. So, accountants love financial statements. They love chasing down numbers. It's our video game versions. Tracking down numbers.
I like it. Yeah, like it's like killing bad guys, right? By finding those bad numbers they got to squash.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
And
and I never
so,
really,
oh, go ahead.
I never really picked up on video games when I was a kid, but this is really my version of video games. Building the numbers, making sure they tie, and finding out what's missing and fixing that.
I think that's a great way to describe it. Um, what you did services a while ago, around FRX. Do you do any services purely around the out of the box financial report writer in Acumatica, or is it all about Prospero for you these days?
So we really have not dove into that application. We've really just stuck with Prospero for the Acumatica financial statements. It's
Gotcha.
really kept us busy, uh, especially the people who move from like GP, the Dynamics GP ERP solutions over to Acumatica. We've moved with them from FRX over to Acumatica, so they never really even looked at the reporting piece that came with Acumatica.
Gotcha.
And we do the building blocks like FRX did, rows and columns. They're familiar with that. Um, they don't have to go to a separate uh, application to edit those reports. It's all inside our version of financial reporting, Prospero. So uh, some uh, some different hoops that they do not have to jump through with our version versus the Acumatica reporting piece.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So for someone who's coming over from Dynamics and they're familiar with FRX, it might be worth looking at Prospero. What about someone who, is coming off a totally different solution and they don't even know what FRX is? What would be your pitch to them as terms of why they should look at Prospero instead of, or in addition to the out of the box financial report writer in Acumatica?
Yep. So we really, just like FRX was tailored for accountants and made by accountants, Prospero is as well. So that's the biggest hurdle, is just, you know, knowing your chart of accounts. And if you know your chart of accounts, which all the accountants do, all the finance team does, picking up Prospero and building those reports, rows and columns, really straightforward and easy. So, um, and for accountants to be able to add new accounts and not have to worry about um, did that account go into the right reports in the right locations, it's a a great way for them. One less thing for them to have to worry about.
Gotcha. So ease of use.
Ease of use is awesome for that purpose. Financial reporting, as easy as possible, tailored for accountants. And we do have some people that have the IT staff build reports for the accounting team, but we try to really get away from that because if you do that, you've got the accountants that have to tell the IT staff what they need. The IT staff has to go build it and send it back to them. Whereas if you open it up for the accountants directly, they know what accounts are missing. They add it themselves. It's easy for them to make those additions or changes to the calculations. They don't have to know um, a programming language. It's all just double click, pick from a list, add that new account, or type it in if you know the codes for the account numbers. So just as easy as possible for the accountants.
So it sounds like maybe you haven't looked at the out of the box financial report writer that much. So maybe I'll I'll kind of do a comparison on the two. You know one side, I know the other.
Yep.
The regular financial report writer, it is very similar to FRX. It's all, and the nice thing though is it's inside the application, whereas FRX was an outside tool. So right on the Acumatica the menu, you've got report definitions where you pick rows and columns, and so then you have a row set screen and a column set screen. You also
Hmm.
have a unit set screen, which is like I forget what they called it in FRX. It was like a roll up tree or something like that.
A
And
unit set screen.
it's like
So
there was a tree concept that you could do in FRX, but I can't remember what it was called.
yeah, FRX did have reporting trees, which would let you summarize any of your companies or any of your segments or dimensions and run reports against those summaries. So we have a similar concept. It is a lot different than how FRX had reporting trees. We let you summarize your companies and any of your dimensions or segments by um, summaries in Prospero, mix and match those against any report you run, mix and match those summaries in any rows of the reports, any columns of the reports, and you're not stuck with one reporting tree that you have to use for that one report. I mean, you can mix and match any which place you need to.
Gotcha. Yeah, so sounds very similar to the out of the box financial report writer. Unit sets are, you can include them, but you don't have to, and you can mix and match. Same idea. So it's always row set, column set, and optionally a unit set when you're putting a report together. And then, just like with FRX, they interact, right? So one gets priority over the other if there's a conflict, and it's all about hooks and wildcards and stuff like that.
Yep.
One thing it doesn't do well, in my opinion, is the formatting side of things. So, yeah, you can do it. It's just really tedious to, like to click it. It's a lot of clicks, to get something to bold, format, or background shade. And then if you remember with FRX, to insert a row between two rows, you have to pick a row number between those two numbers. It's pretty antiquated, but that's how it works. Same thing with
Yep.
the Acumatica out of the box financial report writer.
Yeah, so our formatting, um, very similar to the Microsoft ribbons you see in Excel or Word across the top of the screen there, the bold, highlight the whole row, whole column, bold that, italic, underline it, background shading, font shading, um, very similar to the ribbons in the Microsoft products.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, tailored to the Dynamics audience, which Dynamics went that direction like 20 years ago, even, right? I mean, they they've been doing that a long time. That whole ribbon concept, so that makes
Yep.
sense. Um,
And
so yeah, what?
accountants, they love Excel, so they see that ribbon in Excel all the time. So we kept it in Prospero.
So it makes sense. Your formatting is more user friendly, uh, and another thing the out of the box report writer doesn't do is being able to report by day. It does it by financial period. I was wondering if you guys do, like, could I run a trial balance, for example, as of March 5th, or can I only run it as of a financial period end?
No, we can break it down by dates as well. So
Gotcha.
that's fine for handling that. With drill down right inside Prospero for the exact transactions by date that make up those details, the exact balances and the account level details that make up the totals. And any date combination is fine.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yes, Acumaticas does do the drill down as well, but yeah, they don't do the individual dates. It's got to be by financial period, and that's I've definitely seen that be a complaint that people have had about it.
Hmm.
Um, what about in terms of how it's delivered? So Acumatica is, of course, a web-based product, and so since they built the financial report writer into the product, it's all web-based. How about your solution? Is it like a Windows client? Is it a web client, or how does someone interact with it?
Yep, we have the web interface. So just pull up the browser, access the application. We started it off back in 2015 or so with a desktop installation. We rolled out the web version pretty quickly after that because that was just the way everybody was going, which really works well for us and works well for users. Our web version looks identical to our desktop version, just right there in a browser.
Perfect.
And
So web version, and then I assume you have to bring the data over on some type of cadence. Now, uh, to me, with financial data, once a day is plenty. But what do you typically do, and how do you pull that data out of Acumatica?
we have an automated copy process that copies the new transactions over to Prospero SQL database on a regular basis. They could do it. We have a few clients that do it like every night. The majority of clients will do it every minute or two. It's a very quick
Oh, okay.
copy, and it's scheduled on the back end so that the individual user never has to see that process happen. But we do have a manual option as well. So if you are one of the clients that just have it update every night, but like in the middle of the day, you're an accountant, you post a new entry and you can't wait for the next run to see that new entry show up in a financial statement, right inside Prospero, you can click the manual integration. It'll copy that new transaction for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
so
you
it's
have the schedule plus the way to manually refresh it.
yep. Hmm.
Gotcha. Okay.
And those can run as often as you need to.
Another limitation with the Acumatica financial report writer, at least last time I checked, I don't like keep super up to date because it hasn't changed in a long time, but you couldn't report on unposted transactions. Is that something that you're able to pick up?
Yep, definitely we can. So posted or unposted in any report you build, or both at the same time.
Perfect.
FRX had that deal where they could do that, and Managed Reporter did too. So we kept that in ours.
Perfect.
Yeah, and
Let's
most of our
see.
clients post everything and run the statements, but we do have a few that I mean, I have one client that they never post anything. Everything is unposted. So they definitely needed that option.
And for me, it's more like, you're making that adjusting entry and you know what you want the ending balance to be, and you're just making, the entry to get there, and you want to run it to make sure your entry is going to do what you want it to do, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I guess if you don't like posting things, that could be beneficial as well.
Hmm.
What about, let's see, I'm trying to think of other like holes in the out of the box financial report writer. We
Did
talked about
didn't the
unposted.
out of the box for Acumatica have to have a download for editing report definitions?
Tell me more, like a download. What do you mean there?
Yeah, I didn't think that you could edit a report definition in the browser window.
You can. I mean, it's all stored. That's actually to me the main advantage of it is that it's all native,
Mm,
which where FRX was not. Right. It's just one web page for editing a row
mhm,
set or editing a call set or editing a unit set. And then there's a fourth screen for editing the report definition, which is where you tie the two or three of those together. And then, you just run it. You can also drop it on the menu as a menu item or run it off of the report definition. And then you can also schedule it, like schedule it to email out. It's a little clunky to do that,
mhm.
and I just thought of another hole there, which I'll bring up in a second. But yeah, you,
Yeah.
you can. It's all native and it's all web based, and that is an advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, FRX was a separate application. Just want to clarify that Prospero is all in one browser window. And in that one browser window for Prospero, if you have like five row definitions open or five column definitions open in that one browser window, they show up as separate tabs inside that one browser window.
Ah, okay. Which is that any different than separate browser tabs in the same browser window? I mean, it's like a tab within a tab, sort of, is
It,
what it sounds like.
it right, tabs inside of a tab, yeah. So it
Gotcha.
kind of looks like that. And you can open up multiple windows of Prospero to separate browser instances and have them on like different monitors. So that's fine too.
Gotcha. But you're still looking at one at a time, right? You're looking at a row set or a column set, because and that's where it gets confusing for people, right? When the two interact, that's when your brain sometimes has to do some gymnastics.
Yeah, there is, you if you're editing a one row definition, it's going to affect that report. It could affect multiple reports because you can mix and match and reuse those definitions between multiple reports. That makes it helpful for reducing maintenance. So if you have a row definition for one income statement and you have to add that new account, it updates that report definition the next time you run it and any other income statement that uses that row definition same time.
And do you have any type of like nice way of viewing, I don't know, in a fancy tree structure or even any kind of way to see, all right, here's all the reports that this row set or column set is going to impact if you make a change?
We do. So we have a, a window that will show you a list of all your existing report definitions and every row that's used by every report, every column that's used by every report, and you can sort by those row definitions or sort by the column definitions, see them all in one window. Um, there's also in the properties window for every one of those rows or columns, you can say, okay, this is the properties window for that definition. Where is it used?
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
that's nice. Yeah, seeing it all tied together.
Yep. So you can
One thing that
easily
it
see. Hmm.
one thing I did think of when I was talking about scheduling reports out to email, one thing it doesn't do well, you can combine it like when you're sending the email, like you want to combine the income statement and the balance sheet reports together, but you don't really have a reporting book concept, if that's the right name that you had in FRX, where you can say, hey, I want to include these five reports and always run them together. Do you have any type of concept like that?
So we do. So Prospero lets you put several reports into one report group, have them all run at one time. You can also put charts and graphs in that group as well and have them all run at one time, even with the numeric reports. And all those can generate to multiple files or to be included in one file.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like it. And charts and graphs. That's first what caught my attention. The Acumatica report writer does not do that, so I like that. You can somehow include charts and graphs in your reports.
Yeah, so years ago, FRX had a separate application that you could buy and include charts and graphs. We like that. We just included it with Prospero as a default. So any report data you've got, actuals, budget, forecasts, you can put those into numeric reports, and you can look at those in the numeric layout as well as in charts and graphs at the same time, side by side. Easy to jump back and forth between graphs or numeric, and that's any data set you've got inside Prospero. And the
Cool.
charts and graphs are not just like static representations of the numeric data. You can still double click and drill down through the charts and graphs to the next level of details. You can re-summarize those charts and graphs and their data by any of your companies or dimensions inside Prospero right away. So not just
I
static
like that.
pictures.
And like, so I can click on the specific bar within the chart and only drill down to that piece of data, something like that.
Right. Might be a piece of the pie chart or a bar that says total expenses. You can double click and you can see, okay, well, these are all coming from this location.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you can do that with the Acumatica dashboard tool, but that's separate from the financial reports. So I like that you've got it together in one thing. That's
Yep.
nice.
All built in, all included with the any financial reporting installation. And that's true for the budget installation as well. So if you are a client and you just buy Prospero for budgeting, you still have really reporting with charts and graphs too.
And let's go to budgeting, but before we do, there was one other thing you said there that caught my attention, which was if you're setting it up to, let's say, create those reports in that reporting book, you said something about one file or multiple files. And what it made me think there, are you able to have it like dynamically create a separate PDF or Excel file based on company or even a part of your chart of accounts so that it automatically splits it out into separate income statements or whatever it is? Is that where you're
You
going with that?
You could, yes. So
Ah, I
any
like
of
that.
report or charts and graphs that you run from Prospero can go directly to Excel, one Excel file or multiple Excel files, sorted out by companies or anything else you've got in your chart of accounts. Um, and that's true for PDFs as well, or yeah, Excel or PDFs.
Cool. I like that. Um, Oh, I thought of one more. Sorry. Let's say you
Okay,
sent it to Excel. When you send it to Excel, does it include the formulas or is it just the static numbers? Like, when you get to things like summarize totals.
sure. We have a checkbox in the report definition, so you could set that up to send the formulas to.
Awesome. Yeah. So you're definitely doing a lot more than the out of the box financial report writer.
We feel like that, so yeah. So tell the world.
Hopefully we just did. Depends on how
Yeah,
many people listen to this. Well, cool. So worth looking at Prospero. In addition to the out of the box financial report writer for Acumatica. We hit on some of the differences there. I'm sure there's more, but maybe let's turn the corner to budgeting. So I'll
okay,
give you my limited, and I'm going to put budgeting and forecasting together into one statement. You can break them
sure.
up if you want, but my very limited experience in that area was with FRX Forecaster like 20 years ago, and we were
Yeah,
implementing it for a company that managed like the back office for dental offices. So
mhm.
they took care of the marketing and accounting and all that stuff that a dentist isn't a specialist in. And then the dentist just had to run their office and paid like some management fee to this company. And they ran it for like over 100 dental offices. And so it made sense when it came to budgeting season that rather than send an Excel template to 100 different email addresses and then have to keep track somehow of where everyone was in the process of their budgeting, by doing it in Forecaster, it was much cleaner. One, you didn't have to distribute Excel files. People just logged in to populate, were they thinking of hiring anyone or whatever those financial budget numbers were for the next year. So it made tons of sense in that situation. I'm curious, just stepping back from the tool for a second, in your experience in mid-market ERP, when does someone really, what are some of the pain points that causes someone to say, you know what, I'm tired of doing this in Excel. I really need another solution for this?
Yep, and we get that all the time. So Excel is a great solution for budgeting and forecasting to a point. But at some point, companies outgrow it. You get too many people in the budgeting process. There's too many templates that you've got to duplicate and email out to everybody. You've got to wait for those templates to get emailed back to you. You've got to consolidate all those Excel files and import it somewhere to get a consolidated budget and then get that into your reporting system. So at some point, you just outgrow that process. There's too many templates, too many people involved, and the work is just, takes so much time. And those are the biggest pieces we see with the problem. But then you're also left with stuff like, people love to break your Excel templates and add their own rows and add their own calculations without telling you, and that throws off your consolidations. You can try to protect it, but some people find a way around that. So, um,
Absolutely. Yeah. You send out one version of the Excel template and it comes back in 50 different forms. I'm sure
yeah.
that's a huge reason why people call you.
hmm So, I mean,
So it
those are
seems
some of the
like the number one
hurdles.
reason would be like number of people involved in the process, right? Like if you're super anal retentive, you can handle all that stuff if you're the only one involved. Do you feel like that's the biggest reason when you start getting, what is it, maybe 5 or 6 people involved, or in your experience, what's that tipping point?
I think that up to 10 is a good number if you're having to duplicate 10 templates and email those out. But once you get past that point, then it's like herding cats. So I don't know if that's a southern term, but it's just you send
Oh, I
stuff
know that
out.
one.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, definitely. They're just all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Interesting
So
that you peg it at 10, especially as a person selling a solution. Because for me, I would peg it more like at 5 personally. But it's interesting. You put it more like at 10. I guess you're being gracious to Excel.
it's generous a number, yeah, generous number, and it really does rely on the 10 people you have to email out to. Are they going to do their work right away and send it right back to you? Are they going to delay, and never send it back to you? It's really about the people involved in the process too.
Good point. What
Yeah,
type of cats they are. That makes sense.
yeah, Siamese or whatever.
So then, yeah, let's get into more. I roll budget and forecasting together.
Yep.
Do you break them apart, or what is that? What does it mean?
So the majority of our clients will do an annual budget to get them started, whether it's calendar or fiscal. They'll do that to get them get something on the books as a budget number. And for a lot of them, that's all they do. So they just do it one time. They have that for the rest of the year, and then they don't do it. They don't touch it again until they roll it out for the next 12 months after that. Um, After COVID, we saw a lot more clients pick up the forecast option where like they'll do the original budget, start off the year, and then like when Q1's over or right before Q1 is finished, they'll say, okay, we're going to copy the original budget to a forecast version. Everybody log back in. Are these numbers still valid? So,
So budget is like your term for the annual numbers. Forecast is more quarterly or monthly or more frequently than annually.
right. Yep. And I
And
think
does forecast
quarterly,
also like? Oh,
mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
I think quarterly is what we see most often for forecast.
Yeah, once a month would be a lot of work.
Correct. Yeah.
Makes sense. So quarterly being the most common. Do you typically see people forecast at the same level of detail that they did their budget, or do they typically do it in a more summarized format? Like, hey, I'm not going to itemize out these five things and five separate numbers. I'm just going to roll it together and throw a forecast number, one forecast number at it.
Um, well, for us in Prospero, it's an easy copy process to copy everything from your original budget to the new forecast version and include actuals for those first 3 months right away. Because everything's in Prospero, it's ready for you to pull any which way you need to for any input screen and any reports, actuals versus forecast columns. Um, so we see that as an easy process for them to just copy all the details to the new forecast, quickly just look through those numbers for your department or location or whatever, and save any changes. So we see, there's fewer columns, fewer months for you to have to worry about looking forward, but the same data, the same list of employees, the same list of capital assets that you would have added to the budget, the same list of accounts.
And then what about like outside of the tool itself, just from a conceptual standpoint? Do you find that, having been around this industry for a while, uh, a long while, um, do you find that like, would it be weirder to go through essentially a different forecast process than the budget process? In other words, yeah, like you said, you've already got the employees listed out or whatever that level of detail was.
Hmm.
Does it make more sense? It sounds like it does, but does it make more sense just conceptually outside of the tool that for the forecast process, you go through the same process? Because in a sense, you already kind of have the muscle memory built up. You're already accustomed to whatever that process is. And rather than introduce a new process, like something that's different, even if it's less numbers to enter and it's more summarized, it's different. So you kind of have to get used to it. You find that it's better to just do basically the same budgeting process, but now, as you said, for less columns when you're doing the forecast.
I think it's easier for them to keep the same process, just fewer columns. Um, Same people involved in the same process. They have just recently looked at their budget or their last forecast over the last 3 months ago. Uh, they're familiar with that process. They are used to the input area, how to get to it, how to change balances. So I'd say I see it easier just keeping that same process.
And that makes sense. Yeah, that was one thing I was curious to ask you about because I wasn't completely sure myself, which, when I hear budgeting and forecasting, I'm always like, are they really separate things or is it one just more frequent version of budgeting? It sounds like,
Yeah.
at least from what you've seen, forecasting is just a more frequently done budgeting more than once a year.
Yeah. And, for the clients that we have where they have everybody that just does one annual budget, you do see um, a lot of people saying, "Oh, I hate doing the budget. It's budget time again. I've got to get back in there, relearn that whole process, and check the numbers for the next year." But if you've been doing forecast updates every 3 months, you're used to that process. You know where to go. You know what needs to be changed. It's fresh in your mind, really. So it's less pushback on the end users on that side.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, your month end close process for accounting, doing that every month, it's not as bad as although there's some things that you only do once a year, right? And so then when that once a year rolls around, like, oh no, I've got all this extra work.
Yep,
But the more you can put into the month end close, right? Like it, the more like the end of the year is just another month. And it sounds like it's sort of a similar concept with budgeting and forecasting. Instead of budgeting being this exhausting budgeting season annual event, if you just do it more frequently, you're more used to it, it sounds like.
I agree. And that really for our clients caught on after COVID, and it's been we think it's a very positive change.
So that's very interesting. You're talking about like just your existing client base. You found that more of them were interested in forecasting because of the tumultuous financial stuff going on with COVID.
Yeah. Uh, the budgeting process and forecast changed a lot after COVID. Yes.
Interesting. Oh, that's yeah, that's exactly the kind of tidbits I like to pick up on this podcast. That makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't have thought of that though. Actually,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. So budgeting and forecasting, let's just call it one thing. It sounds like, right? We always put it together.
Sure. Yep.
At least in a post-COVID world, you should hopefully you're thinking of them together. Let's just do budgeting and forecasting as one thing on a quarterly basis.
There you go.
We're advocating for that. And so, in the Prospero tool, I'm curious about, we've talked about financial report writing. We set up rows and columns. We can do all that in your web-based tool. I would assume setting up budget templates. We can go there in a second, but let's table that. Assume that's all done in your web-based tool. What about when someone's entering, though, their budget and forecast numbers? They might have nothing to do with the setting up of the template, but they're the ones who just use it. Is that also done in your same tool? Same, just another user in the same tool?
It is. So everything is still in that same one browser window, financial reporting and budgeting. You build your input screens pretty much the same way you do your reports, rows and columns. Some clients even reuse their reports for their input screens. So same list of accounts, same columns. Um, uh, you don't have to get security is all in that one application. So you control who accesses what companies and what data inside those companies for reporting and budgeting all in one centralized location.
Including someone who's like an end user who only enters numbers and doesn't even set up templates.
Yep, easy for them. They may have one screen for data input, and they have that one place to go to, type in a few numbers, save it, they're done.
And that makes sense. Like, it sounds like technically it's one platform from a technical perspective, and then you have security in terms of what someone can access, and then I would assume you also have licensing in terms of what that user is licensed for. You probably have different price points for, to what extent that user uses your application.
Sure, we do. Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, power users versus people who just run reports and do data input for budgets. Some people are just viewers. So, yeah, different security roles inside Prospero.
And what about licenses for someone who just receives reports via email? Do you have to have a license for that, or can I add as many people to those distribution lists as I want?
So, if they're just getting Excel files that you email to them, they don't count as a user in Prospero. So, that can go to anybody.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah, and that's pretty powerful. Like I'm kind of trying to line it up with Acumatica's philosophy of non-user based licensing, and I get that, you know, coming from the dynamic side, you're more user based licensing, and that makes sense too.
Hmm.
But that's more akin to Acumatica side, where you can just distribute to as many as you want, especially with that ability to dynamically break it up by company or by, I assume, by department as well.
Sure.
You
Yep.
could actually hit multiple people with separate emails. They only see their numbers. That makes sense. So I know it could probably take a whole episode to talk about the mechanics of how you set up budget templates. So I don't know if I really want to go there, but I'm curious um, to talk about the data. Maybe we start with the financial reporting side. So um, are you able to grab submodule data at all, like for drill down on sales, for example, and see what customers that makes up? Or is it primarily just GL data at this point?
So, we are very tailored just for geo data. So, although we're not opposed to looking at other sources. Prospero is under constant development. So if we have a client that says, "Hey, can you pull data from this table and this database and use it in reporting or use it in budgeting?" We're not opposed to looking at that for that client. So customizations, we're glad to look at with them, but it's really intended for the GL data.
And that makes sense. Like, yeah, like you said, you're you're tailored to accountants, built by
Yep.
accountants for accountants, essentially. I was just
hmm
curious on that.
And if you have
On
data,
the
mhm.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
If you have data like in Excel spreadsheets, like uh, statistical data, and you want to use that for budgeting or reporting, we can import from Excel as well. So we can then that's built into Prospero as it is, importing from Excel. So that comes with any installation of Prospero, and just asks us about customizations too.
So that makes sense on the financial reporting side. Then on the budgeting and forecasting side, I would assume that that is still at the end of the day, you're budgeting down to a GL account. That's where the numbers are going to get stored. Is that right? Or do you have like another concept of where the numbers get stored?
So the numbers are the account level details, and other sources that we bring into Prospero for budgeting and forecasting would be payroll data and capital data for new assets.
So so that makes sense. So you would have line items for data entry purposes. You
hmm
might even like key in an employee's name and salary data and do that for all the employees.
hmm
But then the sum of that is going to write back to a specific GL account.
It would, yes.
But you're still storing in your system all that additional level of detail. It's just not going back into the I don't know, the central repository of GL data, if you will.
Correct. We keep that payroll data, those new asset details, in separate tables in the Prospero SQL database. So they are separate from the tables that store the account balances.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I would think, especially on the budgeting and forecasting side, we talked about some differences between the out of the box financial report writing tool in Acumatica and the Prospero tool. When it comes to budgeting and forecasting, there's some like super lightweight functionality in Acumatica, but
hmm
in my opinion, it's just not even there, in terms of really having a way for someone just to enter budget information. I personally I wouldn't think Acumatica would fit the vast majority of use cases. So,
Yeah.
there's not really anything to compare to there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All that stuff is just kind of unique to you.
We really built the budgeting and forecasting piece in Prospero, tailored on the users that are coming from Excel spreadsheets or from Forecaster. So rows and columns for data input, easy for them to move from those applications to Prospero's input screens. Just to make it as easy as possible as of a transition.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, cool. So, you don't have to answer this, but can you give us like a ballpark number of customers that you have at the moment across, any ERP product, just total number of Prospero customers?
So we've got thousands of users. If you look at all of our ERP solutions, um, including Dynamics, Sage, Adirant. So we hook up to far more than just Dynamics and Acumatica. Acumatica is our one of our newest, so they are one of our smaller bases right now.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, a GL is a GL, right? So this
Yep.
is not a tool. Some ISV solutions really have to understand the specific ERP that they're working with in terms of the workflow. With a tool like yours, I mean, a GL is the GL no matter what tool you're in. I
Yep.
would think that would be the case.
Yep. And as long as we can pull the GL account balances, chart of accounts, transaction details into Prospero, we're good to go. And it really doesn't matter what ERP, um, but we really are trying to make a home for ourselves with Acumatica too.
Cool. So yeah, it sounds like you've been around the but financial reporting, budgeting, and forecasting space for 25 years or so.
I'm
Deep
amazed
history.
it has flown by so fast.
Got the chops there, and then your Prospero product about 10 years or so. The
Yep.
Acumatica ecosystem's a little newer to you, but got thousands of customers across 10 years. And I like that you keep the accountant visor on, so to speak. Like I'm a data guy myself, and I think it's so easy for a data person to be like, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, it's just data. We could do that. We could do that, and become like a BI tool or a data warehouse tool. But I like that you've kept the passion, the video game passion for financials and accountant speak, and you've kept that focused. It sounds like that's to me that's an advantage. It's hard to stay focused. I think it's so easy to want to add this and that and the other and become something else, but staying true to accountants, I think that's admirable that you've been able to do that, and I hope that you continue to do
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yep. We love debits and credits.
that. I love it. Well, cool. That's great. I think it's a great tour of financial reporting, budgeting, and forecasting, not just specific to Prospero, but just in terms of how it works in a mid-market ERP product like Acumatica. Anything else though that you think would be worth bringing up that we didn't get to?
I mean, if there's something that you feel like a client needs that we haven't touched on, email me. Odds are that we already do it, or we can find a way to do it for you, as long as it's, financial reporting, budgeting, forecasting. We're here for you. We plan to be here for a long time to come.
And would you mind if I put your email and the related links on the episode page?
I would love that.
I will do that. Go ahead and tell us so we get it verbally, and then I'll also put it in the related links.
My email address, noah.moseley, Noah period Moseley at msxgroup.com. That's like March Sam X-ray group.com. We did that name for when we first started. We did it for ex Microsoft employees.
Oh, that's where that comes from. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
MSX. Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks, Microsoft.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. I'll also put it on the episode page at augforums.com/episode 128. So people can email you there.
Awesome. Good deal. Tim, it's been an awesome interview with you today. I really appreciate the time with you here.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. And I think this was your foray into the podcasting world. And thanks for being willing to be a guest on this podcast. I appreciate it.
Yep. Here's to 128.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of augforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening and take care.